It's the After Show with TelecomTV's Guy Daniels and Ray Maistre.
Yes, welcome to the After Show on TelecomTV. I'm Guy Daniels, Director of Content, and we are broadcasting live and ready to answer your questions at the end of Day 2 of the DSP Leaders Summit on 5G Evolution. We've got a great lineup of guests joining us again today, and we'll get through as many of your questions as we can. So if you haven't yet sent one in, then do so now using the form on the website. And sharing the workload on the After Show, as usual, is Ray Maistre, Editorial Director at TelecomTV. Big focus on private 5G networks today, Ray, which is generating a lot of interest.
Yes, Guy, absolutely. The role of 5G in private networks has been a hot topic for more than a year. And now with telco edge computing becoming a reality, it's one of the key service battlegrounds. And in a way, this highlights a broader and critical area that service providers have to focus on and get right. And that's how to best serve their customers beyond their wide area networks, in buildings, in stadiums, in homes. And this is where the intelligent CPE, AI management tools, virtualized functions and remote diagnostics come into their own. There's a real opportunity beyond the traditional demarcation points.
Yeah, there certainly is, Ray. It's absolutely all to play for. Now, on with the show, and joining us live on the programme today are Arnaud Vamparys, who is Senior VP Radio Networks and 5G Champion at Orange. Adam Hotchkiss, who is co-founder of Plume Design. Hanan Garcia, Global Telco Solutions Manager for Red Hat. And Mark Gilmore, Mobile Connectivity Solutions at Colt Technology Services. Hello everyone, very good to see you all again. Now we were to have been joined by Antje Williams of Deutsche Telekom, but illness has meant she's had to pull out. So do get well soon, Antje. Right, lots of audience questions to get through in the next 45 minutes or so. Ray, over to you to start us off.
Great, thanks so much, Guy. Arnaud, we're going to start with you, but before we get to the question, a quick question for you, and we've been asking this of all of our after show guests this year. What got you into telecoms? How did you start your career in this industry?
In fact, I did engineering school like my older brother, and then I really hesitated between biology, quantum mechanics, and telecommunication. I had the possibility at the time to work either for the state or a private company, and I chose telecommunication because at that time we were moving from analog to digital with the start of GSM, 2G generation, and of course the internet generation was just after, so it was a great time.
Right, well, an excellent choice, but a tremendous breadth of opportunities and topics there. Really interesting. Great. Thanks, Arnaud. So let's get to our first viewer question. And the question is there a danger that private 5G becomes an alternative solution to 5G network slicing, and that the two end up competing with each other? So I guess this is the playoff between that pure standalone private network that's not linked to the external wide area network against the 5G slice from the public network. So is there a chance that they'll compete against each other?
Network slicing is quite a generic concept coming with a 5G network generation, and that is for the first time a real multi-service network. It is in fact the possibility to differentiate the quality of services per objects, per services, or even per business processes. We had already some possibilities in 4G with APN to exit the traffic or QCI to define different quality of services, but we have much more. 5G has a unique capability to do the end-to-end between device, radio access, transport, core network. And in fact, network slicing can apply to the different network type of network. You can have different slice on public network, like virtual private network, and then you can accommodate mobile broadband, fixed wireless access, B2B needs. You can put it on hybrid network, creating private extension on public network, where you have part of the traffic exiting locally and part going to a public network. And you can have a full private network, as you mentioned, with slice definitely directly defined by the B2B customer. And as Orange or Orange Business Services, in fact, we offer a full portfolio because we do know that it's quite costly still to design, build, run a full complete network on each business site. So the full portfolio is definitely needed.
Yeah, okay, excellent. And a good point on the cost there. There's definitely a high cost to taking everything within that private network. Mark, I saw your hand up there. You want to come in on this?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it's a danger. I think it's more of an opportunity for operators, mobile operators, where they have that wide area public network to either use slicing as it matures, or to be able to do a complete bespoke private cellular opportunity. So I don't necessarily think it's a danger. I think it's more of an opportunity. Perhaps what we will see is other players, and I mentioned this previously, but I think this is an opportunity for a bit of a democratization in the field as well. So I think there may be other players that will come in. So maybe then you might see private cellular up against an operator slice, for example, but coming from different markets or different vendors. So I don't necessarily think it's a danger. I think it's more of an opportunity.
Okay. And is it too early to see any trends about which kind of approach to private 5G networks is going to be out there in the market amongst enterprises? Or are there not enough examples yet to see what enterprises want? Arnaud, if I can just ask you, are you seeing any activity, any demand from enterprises around 5G private networks already?
Yes, we see quite a lot of demands right now, and not only to industrial or manufacturing sectors, in fact, and that's why right now to give access to every companies at any side and every sector of economy, we are currently opening a number of 5G lab, 9 in Europe, with 2 different axes. The first one is for each company to understand 5G and the opportunities, and the second really to test, experiment in a full 5G environment. And through that, they can really have an idea if they need, let's say, quite differentiated quality on public network, this private extension, or this full private network you mentioned.
Okay, great. So an opportunity to check out the applicability there. Excellent. Okay, great. Thanks very much. Guy, back over to you for our second audience question.
Yeah, thank you, Ray. Adam, it's also the first time on the after show for you, so welcome to the after show. And we've got to ask, what got you into telecoms? How did you get your start?
And great to be here. So my start really followed the ballooning of the data on internet. So when I first started working, the internet was just starting kind of its ramp up, and I was involved in the infrastructure build out on intercity type networks. So this was a lot of fiber optics, very high capacity, ultra reliable build out. And then over time, I moved to the metro networks inside of the city, and then to the networks leading into the home, and then the inside data centers, getting connectivity going there. And then what I realized was all this is great, the amount of energy and time and investment for this. But when I go home, I can't get my own network to work inside of my house. So what led me into Plume was really to kind of fix that customer experience I had inside of my home, to make sure that I have the best connectivity anywhere I go should be inside of my house.
It's a problem we all sympathise with, and we're all struggling with. We'd all like to get better. Some astute choices there along the way. That's great experience. Adam, let's move on to our next viewer question then, because this recognises the fact that 5G is not just about enterprise premises, but as you've been saying, it's also about residential premises. So the question is, how can mobile operators better serve their 5G customers beyond the wide area network and into homes and buildings?
So the first question we have to ask, and one we get asked frequently, is 5G a replacement for Wi-Fi or other inside the home technologies? And the answer is no. 5G is not a replacement. If you just look at the cost of connectivity, if I were to have 100 Wi-Fi connected devices, the cost would be well under $1 a piece. And we all know what the cost of 5G connectivity, just in terms of the hardware and the chipsets and the cost of spectrum is inside the house. It's probably easily a 20x difference. So Wi-Fi is definitely the medium of choice and inside the home. Secondly is, how can I now control then if I do have devices which I take inside and outside the house, and I need to have this perfect kind of handover. I go from outside, I move inside. How do I make sure that I don't lose my connectivity or my call or my session that I have with my streaming app, and that's all been worked out within the technology standards. And if you have a control plane which can manage those functions, then you have this kind of seamless handover. The part we want to really then try to focus on is, now that we have this amazing capacity with 5G, especially outside the home, that doesn't necessarily translate to inside the home, because millimeter waves won't go through structures very well, especially if you live inside of a multi-dwelling unit. You might be praying to have some kind of good signal when you get inside of your home. So we need to take advantage of all this high capacity network that can be built out outside the home, connect it to the building or the residential property, and then bring that capacity inside the home to now open up these networks to get rid of the wired monopolies that we have set up, and start setting up now the ability to give high capacity services to almost hundreds of millions of homes in the market that you have 5Gs deployed in.
Great, thanks, Adam. I mean, this is something the industry's been, I guess, wrestling with for quite some time. You go back all these IoT calls for specifications every 10 years, and there's always this sort of handover and interior, exterior objectives that we never quite have got right. But maybe now is the time where all the pieces are in place. Any of our other guests want to pick up on this comment about extending services towards the home? If not, then we've got a lot of questions. So we'll move on back to you, Ray.
Well, actually, I just wanted to have a quick follow on there and see to what extent the whole trend towards automation was leading service providers to think about more how they can control and manage services within buildings, whether it's enterprise or consumer. Is the automation of processes and network management enabling operators to think more about how they can take the service management beyond the walls of properties at all?
So I can fill in a little bit what we've seen just from the IoT sector is the connectivity of IoT devices becomes very critical. And as you start to look at enterprise type locations, the IoT connectivity makes a lot of sense from the business case to retrofit the entire building with sensors and have that level of control, whether it be safety, which might be like leak detectors, smoke detectors, or other type of cameras or entry control systems that would be connected. Those could be serviced either through 5G, or I think we'll talk later about using 4G is perfectly fine for a lot of these types of low capacity devices. And then also having inside the home, it's quite different, where you'd have almost all of that connected over Wi-Fi and have the same level of automation and control, mostly around the IoT comfort levels. So if I have light controls or comfort controls with my thermostat systems, or energy savings with my HVAC, all of that inside the house is usually Wi-Fi connected. Inside of industrial buildings, it may be then LTE or 5G connected.
Okay, great.
Ray,
yeah,
I would even add at that point, you may start to then come into the non-3GPP type of wireless technologies to get involved. I mean, we're experimenting with proprietary and kind of open source wireless technologies as well for the IoT space. So I think there'll be a mixture of technologies as per the use case. You use the right technology for the right use case.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great, thanks. So I think we'll move on now to the next audience question. And this is going to come to you, Hanan. But of course, like everybody else, we're going to ask you first how you got into telecoms. How did you get your start in this industry?
Well, right, that's gonna come as a surprise because telecom wasn't my first career choice. Actually, and I am an engineer in robotics, and this is but very early, even before starting a professional career, go back to school and to the university in France. I studied telecommunications. One of the and actually that might be a surprise for Arnaud. My first I started as a consultant for Capgemini back in 2000, somewhere around there. And my first assignment was for Orange. Actually, we were building the real-time IP billing system for data services, and that was on GPRS technology that time.
Wow, I remember GPRS well. It was so reliable, a great data connection. Okay, excellent. A great entry into the industry. So the question that we've had from the audience, which we're putting to you first today, is what are the edge compute requirements for private 5G networks? Quite a broad question there, but where does edge compute play a role in private 5G?
Indeed, it's a very good question, and one of the things that we are seeing is that yes, we're seeing private 5G as the means of bringing the connectivity, but we need to see 5G, private 5G, as well as the mean of bringing the compute near the processing the data is generated, right? And there's many scenarios out there. So when it's coming in terms of requirements, one of the first things is coming is the flexibility for the capacity that we need there. There's going to be different deployments models depending different sizes. You're not going to deploy a private 5G solution within a mining or a factory or in a harbor, right? So you need to have that flexibility on the infrastructure to deal with the different situations that you're going to end up. That's just to start with. Then we have the performance, right? We want those networks to be performant. We want as well to add and have the capacity on those sites to be able to process the data that we want to process locally. This is what edge computing is about as well. So we need an infrastructure that is able to actually bring those capabilities from the hardware that's going to be located on those locations, to the software that actually going to be executing either for making sure the connectivity and the performance on the connectivity is there, but as well on the computing. We're thinking about machine learning and these kind of things. You need to have that capabilities as well. Then there is other requirements that are coming on top of that. I can come with security. We need those sites to be secure as it will be inside a common and a network operator. So, and that is something that sometimes people take for granted, right? Mobile networks are very secure, and we want to bring that security on that small deployments, on those private deployments as well. That's very, very important. And one other point that we touched before is about automation. So automation is going to be key, is going to be critical. We want all deployments to be almost a zero-touch process. We want this to be, and we need automation to be able to tackle of hundreds of thousands of deployment at scale as well. So those are a few of the requirements that I'm seeing that apply for any edge computing, and especially when we're touching that together with private 5G.
Okay, excellent overview there, Hanan. Thanks very much. Does anybody want to come in with any comments at all on edge computing for private 5G? If not, Guy, I think we. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Mark.
Well, I was just going to say, we see this as a critical factor actually in enabling private cellular opportunities going forward, because the service-based architecture of 5G and enabling then to virtualize components of the core and the RAN then allow us to scale down the 5G RAN and the core components to meet the service that is required. And I think that will help to get to the sort of cost points and price points that will open up new opportunities. So I think it's not just in terms of the application, but it's also in terms of infrastructure for that edge compute is going to be necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. Great, thanks, Mark. And we've heard a lot about the role of edge computing in private 5G just this week in the industry. So it's a really hot topic. Okay, Guy, over to you for the next audience question.
Yes, thanks, Ray. And a reminder to our audience, keep the questions coming, please, because we promise we'll get through as many of them as we can during the programme. Right, we're going back to Mark. Mark, you knew this was coming. What got you into telecoms? How did you get your start in this industry?
I needed a job while I was at university. I was looking for a temporary job, actually, and I've been here ever since. I was actually studying language at university, and I was lucky enough to live close enough to what was then a big technical hub for NTL, then became Virgin Media, then came Arqiva, and they were looking for some temporary work, and I started there, and I really enjoyed it. And one of the first projects I was working on actually was building out fiber network for Vodafone, moving their switch sites to fiber fed infrastructure, and we did that for Vodafone and for Orange. So yeah, that's how I started off, and I kind of then moved across. The lure of mobile and cellular kind of took me, and I went and joined the Mobile Operator 3 right at the very, very beginning, before it was called 3, when it was Hutchison, and right at the beginning of the 3G days, at the turn of the millennium. So yeah, that's how I got into it. It was a temporary job, still doing it.
Amazing how sometimes your career choices don't quite go the way you originally thought, but for the better as well. And those early days at the operators back then, they must have been very exciting for whichever operator you were working for. They were a bit like Wild West days in digital. Fantastic. Right, moving on to our next audience question then. Mark, are there use cases for private 5G away from the more obvious large industrial and large manufacturing sectors? Do companies need to be of a certain type or size to benefit from private 5G?
There are definitely use cases. The question is about the business case surrounding them. And it's a question actually that we've asked ourselves this year, because Colt's background and footprint kind of doesn't really serve the industry sector, manufacturing, mines or things like that we've spoken about. We're focused more on the enterprise B2B sort of market. So we've been looking at the use cases there around smart city, around smart retail, smart office, healthcare, those sorts of opportunities. And so the technology is definitely available. And as I mentioned earlier, that ability to kind of shrink down the cellular network to the components that you need for the application that you desire is possible in 5G, or as the cellular network becomes virtualized in its hardware. So we're looking at that to then open up these use cases to see, is there actually a benefit, and is there a business case that can meet the technology that is already there or that is developing. So it then begs the interesting question: is there a minimum size you can get to before it's no longer cost effective? And we think there is a minimum size there. We haven't worked it out fully yet, but this is then where the opportunity of a network edge cloud infrastructure will then maybe enable us to then take that's that minimum size that you get from a scale of from economies of scale, to then be able to kind of split that across multiple enterprise locations and multiple businesses or multiple use cases, and then use a network edge platform to kind of get the economies of scale there. A little bit, I suppose, like the slicing analogy for a larger public MNO. So yes, I think there are use cases, but I think it is early days to be able to clearly identify which ones financially make sense.
Sure, yeah, thanks, Mark. It's very interesting about looking at the scale, going down as low as you possibly can, that's economically viable, and then splitting it in some way and sharing and extending. Arnaud, would you like to come in on this question?
Yes, in fact, we know all that there is a world of opportunities for different business sector, but in terms for the economy, for the employment, and even for the environment in the decade. And that's why as Orange, we commissioned a study recently to Omdia. And the findings there are quite interesting because the study is in 5 of our operations in Europe, in France, in Spain, in Poland, Belgium, and Romania. And we have seen in this study that there will be more than 1 million jobs enabled through 5G in these countries. It's around more than 1% of the total jobs. And as well, the 5G enabled sales will be around 400 billion euros in the studied countries, so 3% of the total sales. The majority of them are expected, in fact, in manufacturing, in wholesale, in retail trade, and in information and communication. And for us, it was quite good to see the benefit for each sector. If I just take one, media sector, for example, we had already deployed 5G in a stadium for one football club called Olympique de Marseille. And to anticipate the needs and the future needs of all the spectators on this Orange Velodrome. And we really want to demultiply now this spectator experience because perhaps, as you know, we will host in 2024 the Olympic Games in France, and Orange is a partner of this event. And of course, we are working now for a full immersive event experience.
Looking forward to that. There hasn't been a lot of economic modelling going on in this area. I remember the European Commission did a great big study not so long ago, about 3 or 4 years ago. We'd love to see more and go into more detail into all these different business sectors. Anybody else like to comment on the viability of private 5G in terms of types of companies, size of companies? Any other thoughts?
Can I ask a question?
Mark,
can I ask a question back to Arnaud about the stadium example? Because that's a really interesting example there, and it's kind of focused on that immersive experience is still kind of focused on the mobile broadband sort of use case, but to step beyond that into real time sort of communications or things like that. Arnaud, is that something that you think will come out of that? Is that somewhere where you'll use slicing within a private sort of environment?
It's typically a hybrid approach because, of course, you have really the spectators that are coming from outside the stadium, going inside the stadium. And what we have experienced there, it's really immersive from the pitch of the stadium stands, thanks to this 5G, very high connectivity that is enabling different things. Real-time data transmission, of course. Mixed reality, virtual reality with the video streaming, and differentiated as well live audio video streams. And that is allowing, in fact, the users, our customers, to choose that they want to listen or to watch before, during, or after the match or the concert.
Thanks, Arnaud. Thanks, Mark. That's a good follow-up there. Thanks, everyone, for those answers to that question. It's that time that we should really check in on our audience poll now, because we've been running a new poll each day of this summit. It's just one question with 5 multiple choice answers, nice and simple. It's right here on the website, and it's very quick and easy to complete. Now, the question we've asked today is, will mobile network operators benefit from a significant new revenue stream by offering and supporting private 5G networks? And you can see the current split of opinions right here. This is our real-time data. It's skewing towards the agreement side, partially agrees winning it at the moment by some margin. Quite positive that. But let us know what you think. Click on the answer that you'd like and let us know, because we're keeping the polls open all week, and the more responses we get, the more representative it will be. Right, back to our Q&A, because we've still got time for a few more of your questions, so keep them coming in. Ray, have we got our next audience question?
Yep, absolutely. And just interesting results there on that poll. Looks like the very positive momentum behind operators being able to make money from these private networks. That's interesting. Goes against some of the industry reports that came out last year. So that's pretty interesting. Yes, the next question we've had in is shifting the topic here a bit and going towards fixed wireless access. And the question is 5G fixed wireless access, or FWA, going to be more than just a niche use of 5G technology? Could this open up new service and customer engagement possibilities? 5G FWA, what are the opportunities here? Is it going to be niche, or is there going to be a lot more opportunity to use this as part of the service mix? Would anybody like to come in here and comment on fixed wireless access potential?
Yeah, so I can take the first go at it. So
yeah.
From our perspective,
Okay,
we talked to a lot of vendors about how the whole ecosystem will work with 5G fixed wireless access to the home, and our specialty is handling that connection coming into them. How do we make it perfect? How do we put some controls into the 5G modem that's in the house to help with the installation and to help with the tower selection and the load balancing that needs to happen on the network as you start to scale up. The question is, will it become a niche market, or will it become more mainstream? And I think we have to all kind of go back a little bit in past and think about where we are in the point in time. So if you go back to fixed line telephones and wireless coming up with back in the early days, people would say, look, you're never going to get rid of telephone lines. That's everybody loves their landline connection, and here we are today. Everybody hates their landline connection and wants to get rid of it as soon as they can. We're beaming internet from low Earth orbit, for crying out loud. So this is moving at a very fast pace. The change of the mediums in which it's happening, and for us, it's not about the medium of choice. It's, is there enough spectrum? Is there enough investment? Is there enough control? And can we manage the network effectively? And I think the answer is yes. So surely it'll start off as a niche as people move into and start to work out the load balancing and the congestion part. But we're seeing tremendous investment on that side and how to control the home experience. And we see that it will replace a lot of copper or coax or fiber connections, just because of the business case of construction versus new market deployment will be much less with 5G going forward in time.
Okay, great. Thanks, Adam. Arnaud, I'm not surprised to see you put your hand up there to comment on this. So what's the Orange perspective on 5G FWA?
It's one of the three main applications of 5G for us, with mobile broadband and B2B services. Of course, we are a convergent operator. We have 50 million connectable households in Europe, making a number one in fiber in Europe, and we just introduced Wi-Fi 6. But we have still a number of countries where we operate, where fiber infrastructure is not widely deployed. We're operating in Europe and in Africa, Middle East, in 28 countries, so 5G is bringing is coming with new frequencies. We have 3.6 gigahertz, but as well later the 26 gigahertz, for example, in Europe, Africa, Middle East, and they are capabilities. They have capabilities a bit more similar to fiber. So 5G for people living in territories where fiber cannot be deployed rapidly will really benefit from that to get broadband at home or at work. So I think this technology will enable businesses and players in smart cities as well to wirelessly connect factories and urban infrastructure. It's quite an easy to activate solution to connect pop-up store or mobile construction sites in the event of a outage, or as well for different use cases like telemedicine. So you see fixed wireless access has behind a number of use cases and potential. We already have a big demand on 4G in Africa, Middle East, in fixed wireless access, and I'm sure that 5G will increase that during time.
Yes, I think we have to remember that there's still a lot of people around the world, connected or unconnected rather, or connected with only a very low bandwidth connections to the internet, and fixed wireless access, especially using 5G, could be a bit of a game changer in a lot of areas. Mark, you wanted to come in on this as well.
Yeah, I was going to say that the 5G fixed wireless access is only as good as the backhaul that can serve that in those instances. And then the scaling, as was mentioned, the load balancing and things. And so for me, it's a question of scale as to whether it remains niche or whether it becomes a larger opportunity. In saying that, I think fixed wireless access, 5G connectivity or cellular connectivity as an access medium in an SD-WAN solution is quite an interesting proposition. Having that combined, and even perhaps then low Earth orbit satellite may come into that as well as another access medium. I don't think that's here really yet. I don't think we're talking about that imminently, but certainly in the future. And I think that's where there's an opportunity for this to somewhat scale. And I, the idea of combining that in an SD-WAN sort of service assured network is kind of an interesting proposition, and one to keep an eye on as that develops further. But for me, it's a question of scaling. Can it scale? Can we deal with the congestion, the load balancing, those sorts of things that was discussed, and then even getting the back end connectivity to those 5G fixed wireless access points. That it's no good having the wireless infrastructure, beaming into a property or into a business environment if as soon as it hits the tower, it's congested right there and then because there's no connectivity back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One would hope that the days of backhaul bottlenecks might be over, but we should never assume that that's going to be the case. Okay, so Guy, I think back over to you for the next question, and I can see we've got some new ones coming in. So if you want to take the next one, I'll see if I can untangle the ones that are coming in.
Yeah, let's see if we get on without time. See if we can get two in. It all depends on how much discussion and debate this particular question is going to generate. Well, let's see. And this question is 5G alone enough for wireless industrial communications connectivity? Or should this be augmented with advanced Wi-Fi or even 4G? So private networks, is it enough to just go in with 5G, or does it have to be part of a more of a multi-access, multi-technology solution? Anybody want to take a stab at this question from the audience? Oh, Hanan, I saw you looking. Yeah, you're eager to come in. I can see this.
Yeah,
you're chomping at the bit. Come on in.
It's a very interesting question because, as I was mentioning before, that depends on the kind of deployment that's going to be happening, right? Different industries, different sectors within the industry, different kind of deployment. We will face certainly a mix of infrastructure where we're going to be relying on 5G. Sometimes we have to deal with the fact that there is existing 4G already being deployed, and some use cases might end up as well covering with Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi 6 is a great technology for that as well. So this is kind of very interesting question. 5G for sure have all the capabilities to be, and this is reference as well to the previous question that you have, that say there is a lot of opportunities for 5G on the business side. Most of the time, and the mobile technology has been seen as a backup technology, not the prime technology. And with 5G, the telecom operator have the opportunity to bring that connectivity. That mobile connectivity has to be a first-class citizen for the industries and different industries. Now, is the capabilities are there. Of course, so far there is a different deployment model that have been put in place. As I mentioned before, we have this passing from 4G to 5G with the non-standalone deployments. We see that the standalone deployment of 5G will bring whatever the industry will need in terms of connectivity, in terms of bandwidth, in terms of latency, in terms of reliability and security. So for me, it is a yes. But again, it needs to be complemented with the different use case that we're going to be facing out there in the field.
Great, thanks for that. Yes, so yes, but as you say, it depends on what use case it's being used for and the specific application. Any other thoughts on this question? Otherwise, we'll go over to Ray and see if we can squeeze in another viewer question. Okay, let's go on. Let's try and get another question in then. Ray, over to you, and let's get another question in today.
Okay, thanks, Guy. So we've got a question here, and I'm going to try and condense it down. I think the essence of the question is whether traditional communication service providers are in fact the right companies or the most relevant companies to help enterprises with their private networks, because the needs or the capabilities to run a big traditional wide area network are very different from what's required by enterprises for the specific of a private wireless network. So are CSPs the right companies, the telcos, the right companies to run and be the main partners for private wireless networks? Or is a systems integrator, for example, with enterprise experience, a more suitable partner? So does anybody want to pick up on that at all? Okay, Mark?
So the answer to this actually is both. We have found that in some instances it makes much more sense for Colt to lead because we have a relationship with the enterprise customer, for example. We have a strong relationship, strong history with them, and so they trust us and they want us to help, and we bring an SI into that or a specialist, for example, in certain areas. We've also found that actually in some instances it makes sense to allow an SI to lead, and we partner with them, particularly if it's in a specialism area such as healthcare, for example, or government. I think as CSPs we have to be grown up about this to say, actually, we have to listen to what the customer is actually demanding or requires in this sense, and make a decision on what is best for the customer, not necessarily what we think is best for us in that very short term, because ultimately it will end up being best for us as a CSP and for the customer and for the partnership. We're a strong believer now that in this particular area and in connectivity and solutions as a whole, that actually partner engagement is now probably more critical than ever to enable this. So I hope that kind of gives a bit of a flavor as to how we're thinking about this.
Yeah, I think that definitely the thing we hear over and over again is that communication service providers need even more understanding of the specific needs of enterprises to be able to hit their specific requirements around private networks and in fact other kind of managed services as well.
And Ray, and in some cases we have that we have that knowledge, we have that expertise, we have that relationship, and in others we don't. And I think we have to admit to that and bring in the people that can to get the best outcome.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, if there aren't any other answers to this question, I can see the red light is flashing in the corner of our virtual studio, which suggests it's time to go back over to Guy to close us out for the day. So Guy, back over to you.
Yep, thanks. The red light is indeed flashing. We are approaching the end of the programme, the end of the after show for today. Thank you all very much indeed for joining us on this live programme, and to our audience for sending in their questions. Now, we'll be back tomorrow with the third and final live after show programme this week. And if you register for the summit, you're able to send in questions for our panellists. And not only that, but we've got more treats for you.
Yep, these are the summits that never stop giving, Guy. Everyone that registers for this 5G Evolution Summit gets access to 2 reports. Yes, 2. We got a special report on 5G market trends from our research house partner Deloro Group, and that's available right now to download. And then once the summit dust has settled, we'll produce our post-show delegate report featuring key highlights from all of the sessions. Honestly, Guy, I sometimes think we're just too generous.
We are, as you say, Ray, we're just the gift that keeps giving. And we've got more to come, because tomorrow is 5G Evolution Day 3 with a roundtable discussion that looks at the impact of Open RAN on 5G. Very, very popular topic. And that features Telenor and BT, amongst others. And we've got 2 more executive interviews. And then Ray and I are back for the final live after show. So we'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye for now.
The after show was recorded in front of a live online audience.